How do you choose the right tripod for landscape photography? What really matters to me? I'm going to cover it all in this video. Good morning everybody and welcome back to the channel. Now before we start today's video, I want to make something really clear. Today's video isn't a tripod review video. There's plenty of people out on the internet doing fantastic reviews on tripods. But what I want to focus on today is why you should choose a particular tripod, and more importantly, what are the important features that you need to consider if you're buying a tripod for landscape photography. What one person considers to be a fantastic tripod may not be the same as somebody else. Now, I've had a number of tripods over the years, from the trusty Manfrotto tripod that I've got and currently use at the moment, which has served me really well. It's sturdy, reliable, robust, and it's never let me down. And then there's the UNILOC tripod. Strange, made famous by its bent bolt design. A little bit unwieldy and can be difficult to use, but nevertheless some people, mainly late nature photographers and close-up photographers, swear by the bent bolt design made famous by Benro in the early 1990s. So I thought the best way of explaining to you how I would actually pick a tripod would be to go out, take some photographs and talk you through the key points of the tripod which I've selected. I'm going to reveal that later on as I do the video. So let's get the pack on the back, get out there and get some images. Tripods need to be easy to set up, they need to be fast to operate. Now, landscape photography is normally fairly calm and a fairly reflectful sort of type of photography where you're not dashing about all the time, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you just need to get a move on and get that shot. There's times when it's going to start pouring down with rain, probably like now. There's times when the light's going to be changing really quickly and you just need to get things done quickly. At these times you want to be able to operate your tripod really quickly. You don't want to have to fumble about with lots of different controls and fiddly setups and things which make it difficult to use. So that's one of the first things that I want to do. I want to make sure that whatever tripod it is that I pick is easy to operate, that it's not going to take me a long time to adjust it. The previous tripods that I've had have worked reasonably well in that way. The current tripod, well, the three-way head can be a little bit of a pain sometimes, although I do like using it because it's robust and it's stable, and that's something else we need to consider as well. The reason I stopped here, apart from telling you about the tripod, was to take a picture of this really brightly coloured tree with its full yellow autumn leaves against this very dark sort of sombre looking rock face. The contrast between the two was fantastic. Now, it's not a great composition. In fact, it's been quite difficult to compose because there really is nothing here. And in fact, using the ball head, the angle bracket, or the L bracket on the new tripod has helped with that, made it much easier, more comfortable to set up. So this is already working really well. I'll put a bit of viewfinder video up so you just had a look at that, but I'm not going to process the image and show you straight away. I'm going to put the raw file up for you now, and then maybe towards the end of the video we'll put up a slideshow of the images that I've taken today after I process them. This next photograph that I've set up is a good way of illustrating some of the other issues that you get with landscape photography and selecting the correct tripod. One of the issues I find with a lot of people when they first buy the tripod for landscape photography, and I was guilty of it myself definitely when I first started out, is getting a tripod that's too small for you. See, the reason is you don't want to carry a heavy tripod around, and I fully understand that. So you look at the tripod and you look at how it works, and you get something which you can look at nice and comfortably, and then when you extend the legs, open open up the center column, it towers above your head, and all of these things look really, really good. But one of the problems you get is that when you're stood on uneven ground, if you're on a slope or something, for example, you quite often find that one of the legs is much lower than all the others, so you end up shortening some of the legs whilst one of them is at full extent. And the net effect of that is your tripod is now much lower than you thought it was when you looked at it in the shop on flat, even ground. So something I required from the tripod is something that is tall. Obviously not too tall to the point that it becomes so heavy I can't carry it, but I certainly don't want something which leaves the camera set around my sort of waist height, for example. I want something that I can comfortably look at the camera through the viewfinder at head height. Anything more than that you could argue is a bit extreme, but it's about getting the right compromise. If I could find a 2 kilogram tripod that would be 6 foot tall, I would probably buy that one instead. Now the tripod that I've gone for has got a center column, but you don't really want to include that center column in your calculations for height because that's the most unstable part of the tripod. But you only want to use that center column if you really, really have to. Most of the time you want to leave it fully closed down so the camera is working as stable as it possibly can. And that's how I've set the camera up here today. So let's have a look at this picture. The idea behind this picture, before I show you the raw file, is that I want to separate the tree from the background. I just love the shapes of this old tree, the gnarled shape of it, the way that the branches bend and twist around, and I thought it looked really, really good. I also like the colour contrast with the dying bracken underneath, which is a deep browny red colour, and also against the greens in the background. But I'm just hoping that the background isn't too confusing and too busy so that I can't get a reasonable amount of separation. We can do a little bit of that in post-processing and possibly darken the background down and strengthen the foreground a little bit. I have put the polarizing filter on, which tends to saturate those colours and take some of the sheen off the image itself. And in my composition inside the camera, I've cropped it to 16:9, and I've also included a boulder in the foreground, which I think anchors the foreground a little bit better than it would have otherwise. So have a look at the raw file. Landscape photography doesn't really happen without a certain amount of risk involved. And the photograph that I'm setting up and taking now certainly involves a certain amount of risk. The camera's suspended over the top of the water, it could fall in, so I use a strap to try and minimise that risk. I also need to be confident that the tripod that I'm using is also going to be able to deal with these conditions, that it's going to provide a safe and stable platform, that I can submerge the legs in water and that they're not going to corrode and fall apart. And to be honest, if I had any concerns with the tripod that I've chosen, that would be the only one, that when submerged in water or in sandy or dusty conditions, that possibly the leg locks would suffer a little bit over time, because I'm so used to my Manfrotto, which is pretty much indestructible. But nevertheless, I've extended the legs. They seem to be working reasonably well, and I seem to be doing a good job. So that's another thing that you need to consider when you're buying your tripod, is that it doesn't matter what you buy. If you spend £1,000 or £2,000, you need to be confident that when you're using it out in the field, that you're not too precious about it, that you're not prepared to expose it to those risks and use it. What's the point of buying it if you're not going to use it to get the photographs that you want to take? So here, although the risk is calculated and minimised, I am exposing the equipment to the elements. And over the years I'm going to use this tripod, it's going to become exposed to a lot more harsher elements than this. The photograph that I'm taking, I couldn't actually find the big scene that I wanted to photograph of this water tumbling down through the woodland, but I've captured, or I was captured, should I say, by this pink pebble, this stone against this blue sort of rock. I don't know what it is, but it's very blue. And I like the contrast of the colours, but I also like the fact that the water's swirling about over the top of it, creating these patterns. So I'm capturing it in a number of different shutter speeds. So I put one up that I like the best. It's a bit of an experimental photograph, something you recall a photographer's photograph, one that only a photographer would stand and take. So I guess there's just one last thing to do really, and that's to explain to you what tripod I've chosen and why I've chosen it. If I'm honest, my Manfrotto that I've had for many years is all the things I need it to be. It's strong, it's robust, it has never let me down. I've had it a bit several times, cleaned it, repaired it, put it back together, cleaned out the grit and the sand and the water and the salt, and it just keeps on ticking along and working. So why would I even bother changing? Well, my needs from a tripod haven't changed quite so much in terms of features, but what has changed is that I want a lighter tripod. And there's modern tripods out there made of carbon fibre, etc., which are much, much lighter. But that's not without their drawbacks, not without some concerns. I am a little concerned, and it will take me a little bit of time to get used to my new tripod. But the one that I've gone for saves me a whole kilogram. I've gone down from a 3 kilogram tripod to a 2 kilo. That's 30% less weight. And even this morning, walking around with the new tripod, I actually have noticed that when I'm carrying it. The pack is much more comfortable. So that's the first thing. The other thing as well is that my fingers are now a little bit bent out of shape. I've got a bit of arthritis setting into both hands and pretty much all my joints. So undoing the various knobs and adjusting screws and everything on the Manfrotto 3-way head in the morning isn't that easy. It's not that great, especially when it's really, really cold. So I wanted an easy to use head. So I've gone for a ball head. So I've just got one big adjustment screw to undo and loosen, and that should meet all my needs. So what have I gone for? Well, I've gone through a number of different options over the past few weeks trying to decide exactly what it is I need. And what I've come up with in the end is I've decided to go for a Winston Pro 2 from Three Legged Thing. They're a fairly new manufacturer on the block. They have been around for a few years, but they're not probably one of the ones that springs to mind first when you start thinking about buying tripods. I did think about spending a lot more money on a Gitzo or something like that, but to be honest with you, I find it very hard to part with cash. You know, times are getting hard for everybody, so cash is one of the things which has to come into it. I'm a little bit concerned that it's not going to be robust enough, that it's not going to be quite stable enough. To be honest, a lot of that is down to my own confidence and using the kit. So from now on, I'm going to be using Winston, my new three-legged friend. And in a coming up video in the future, after I've had it for about a month and done a number of shoots, I'm going to do a review of it. I'm going to tell you what I like, what I don't like, and give you an appraisal of how the tripod performs for a landscape photographer. I promised at the end of the video I would put a slideshow up of images that I've taken today, so if you want to stay around for the extra 60 seconds or so, whatever it's going to take to do that, then please do. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the next one coming up, let's say when I review the new tripod, then please give it a like, subscribe. It really, really does help the channel, and I'll see you sometime out there in the next video.